Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Distant Socializing. My name is Shelley Jeffroy. I'm the care director at Grace Church in Eden Prairie, and we are bringing to you each week different episodes that highlight situations to help you as we all walk through the coronavirus situation. And tonight, our topic is on walking alongside people that may be struggling and helping our neighbors in their time of need. And it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Beckman, who is an author, a speaker, and she is married to Craig, and they've been married for 28 years. They have three awesome kids, or young adults, I should say, a son, a daughter in law, and you get to add grandma to your title as well.
Yes, pretty
Exciting.
soon. Yes.
Awesome. And you also have two daughters in college. So we share that similarity too, that my husband and I are also empty nesters. So kind of an exciting season of our lives as well.
Yes,
And
it is.
yeah, it's awesome. Well, Sarah, you also hail from the great state of Wisconsin. So I have to mention that because we might have a few Packers fans on here.
Oh, yes. Go Pack or Badgers. Woohoo!
Yes. And you met your husband at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, right?
That's right. Yes.
That's cool. Well, we do have some Minnesota fans as well. And I know you were a resident in Eden Prairie actually for 13 years.
Yes.
We are super glad you're here with us today. So thank you so much, Sarah, for taking time. And you are not a stranger to adversity yourself. I know, Sarah, and reading your bio, and we have a sweet friend in common who introduced us. And tell us a little bit about how growing up as the youngest of 14 kids, you went through a series of hardships as a child, and also what you call in one of your books as a decade of hardship as an adult. So, how has that shaped and affected how you care for people and how we can learn from your experiences as well?
Yes. Well, as you said, I grew up in Wisconsin from a very large family, 14 kids. I'm the youngest. And ultimately, when I was a young girl, when I was just like 2 or 3, is when our first major hardship hit our family. And our dad was hospitalized with life-threatening cirrhosis of the liver. And at the same time, he was an alcoholic, which is sort of where it all began. But he also then was, while he was in the hospital, they came and knocked on the back door and told my mom that she had 3 weeks to get out of the house because
Yeah.
unbeknownst to her, he had basically borrowed and put her name in things, and the creditors were after them, and they had no credit left, and he had basically bankrupted our family. And so she had all these children, and they wanted her to leave the house. And so what happened was that all sorts of people in the community, both like the school and the neighbors and the church, all came together and loved our family through that time, from bringing us towels and beds and sheets and painting and shoveling
Wow.
coal and all the things, which kind of dates me, but it was 1973. You know how old I am. And so I was very little, but it has woven the fabric of who I am today, knowing that history and heritage of my family, that we were in great need and people came alongside our family and helped us. And then fast forward, when I was a young mom living in Eden Prairie, and I had it kind of started, when I had a 4 and a 2-year-old. I went on bed rest with my third child for 11 weeks. And then not long after that, when my littlest new baby that was born healthy, I had to have my first back surgery of 4. And I had 4 back surgeries in 6 years. And many of them put me just laid up in my bed where I couldn't take care of those babies. And people from the community from Eden Prairie, Minnesota,
Mm.
loved our family through and brought us food and watched our kids and did all sorts of errands and all the different things. And kind of in that same time frame, I also was walking through cancer with friends and neighbors and loved ones. So again, within that same decade of me having back surgeries, I had both a best friend, a neighbor, and a brother-in-law that all were diagnosed and ultimately passed away from cancer 3 years apart, like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year.
Wow.
And so I learned a lot from being sort of on both sides of the bed, if you will, on how to what is helpful and what's not. And then when I moved away from Eden Prairie to New Mexico, then that was when I felt like God was saying, I want you to do something with all that you've learned. And at first I was like, yes, I know so much. I can do this. And then the next little voice I heard in my head was God saying, oh, but you also know a lot of other people. So I want you to ask them too. And I was like, oh, that's so much harder because then I owe them, doing justice to everything they say and getting it right. And it takes more time. And you know what I mean? Like just the first impression I had was no chance. And then, of course, it took me about 5 minutes to realize that, of course, there's so many people that have experienced hardship of every variety. And that was sort of the way Alongside was born, the book, because then I started interviewing people. And I spent about a year and I asked people from every different type of trial, whether it was cancer or divorce or losing a child or infertility, bankruptcy, unemployment, like you name the trial. And I asked people what was helpful and what was not helpful. And so many of the same answers came to the surface. It was like a research paper almost. And then I just kind of compiled it and was like, what are the most common things? And there was so many repeating threads, and they all resonated with me, of course, with my experience with those key friends and loved ones and my own stuff.
Sure. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing that. Especially now, we all have, a basic level of stress in our lives, even if we're not going through something traumatic. But I actually know quite a few people that are um, mourning a loss of a child or going through a divorce or dealing, in a hard marriage or children, you name it, right? On and on,
Yes.
financial, job loss, business issues. So it creates a lot of stress and anxiety and how we love people well. And what do you believe God tells us on how to love people? What does his word say on that, Sarah?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's sometimes it's natural for some people, right, to just express themselves in a way that they have that natural care. They have it woven into who they are, right? And so what I think sometimes can happen is that people think they're off the hook because those people that are really good at care, oh, it's their job to do it. But
Mhm.
actually, I mean, God's word says that we are all to love one another, like love God first and love your neighbor as yourself. So we don't get to have a hall pass on loving people in at all, but especially when they're struggling or hurting, because that I think is one of the most important times to enter into the hard places that people are in and show them the love of God. Because if they aren't open to faith, that is a time typically when they might be more open than normal. And just, essentially when the Pharisees pressed Jesus, right, it was, what's the most important thing? And he said, love me and love others. And so it is about love. I think that's a priority, that we don't do it to check a box. We don't do it to say, I'm the greatest, I brought a meal, it's just essentially needs to be this, that the love part comes through, that they're not a project or an obligation or anything like that, but like we're really truly expressing the love of Christ. And again, I don't think anyone's off the hook when it comes to this, which is the other reason why I wrote Alongside, because I practically show people, what do you need to do? And anyone can do it. And so, you don't have an excuse anymore, because ultimately there's a whole book full of ideas of how we can love well.
Yes, and so let's talk about that. Just give us a few ideas. Has COVID changed the way we love people? And depending on how you answered that too, maybe give us some practical ideas where people could kind of jump in if they're at a loss and going, oh, I
Yeah,
don't know what to do. So,
right. I would say yes. For me, a lot of people, I don't know, I think you fall into one of two categories. You're either trying to find ways to help, or you have kind of just sort of gone into your shell, if you will, and you're just like, I can hardly handle my own thing right now. And so what do you mean you want me to help or love someone else besides me? Which, you know, like that's just kind of life, right? Sometimes we are the one that needs help, and sometimes we're the one that can give help. So there's no judgment in that statement. It's just, I think we've kind of like divided into two camps. And even just in church, if I can be so bold to say that for a minute, like some churches are paralyzed by COVID and not being able to do church the way they normally do. And then others are rising up and finding creative ways to engage their congregations and to love the community. So I really do think there's a very important need that we can fill as the church, but also as individuals to love during this season. One of the things that we're doing is a food distribution. And that, of course, is a natural for me. I'm from a big family of 14. I've done disaster relief serving, and food and people and eating is just part of who God made me to be. But I think that has really filled a need for people where we can we can hand them a box of food, but we can also pray with them after they receive it. Even if we're behind masks and they're in a parking spot and I'm 6 feet away, that's what we've been doing, is like we give them the food box, but then they pull into a parking spot for prayer. And it's just week after week, the same people, and some of them asking for the same prayers. And just what a joy to be part of them saying, like, God answered my prayer from 6 weeks in a row that we've been doing that. So um, I think food is one really tangible way. And even people that that are not working right now are so happy to be able to show up at church. And even if they have to physically distance 6 feet apart and wear their mask, they're still able to serve someone else. And there's no better way that I know to get out of my own junk or my own sorrow or my own quarantine nightmare than to be serving. And I know that not everyone can do that, but like from the privacy of your own home, how can you love your neighbor is sort of part two, right? I mean, we can join what the church is doing. And I would encourage people, there are organizations all over that are serving people that are disadvantaged. We help serve with the Salvation Army in our town. And I took 6 volunteers and we took food bags, and it wasn't our program. We just served, right? And so find a place to serve, I would say, is one way that you can really express that tangible love. But the other thing is just taking time to reach out to people. And I was just having a conversation with someone yesterday and thinking about there's so many ways you can send a restaurant gift card to someone, or you can send them Grubhub gift card and then they can order dinner, or you can order a pizza and have it sent to their house, or you can pick up a care package and drop it at their door without them being home or having to see them, or you can write letters, old fashioned letters and cards. I know that some people that I've known around recently are doing chalk art on their own driveway or on the sidewalks, or writing scriptures on the sidewalk. On one of my walks, I keep finding these lamp posts that have scriptures on posters, just really simply written, and people are putting it on the telephone poles. And it just encourages me so much. So we can, even if we don't know the person, that is just a way to speak love and truth. And so I think we just want to let ourselves off the hook, because maybe we don't want to go to that next level and be intentional and think about what would it require of me to actually reach out and love someone in this time.
Right. Well, that's great. And I know for me too, Sarah, um, as I spent some time in adversity myself, just when I got out of my own element and decided I was going to pick up the phone or deliver a meal or pick up groceries for someone, even as a single mom. So no matter what your budget is, you can help someone, right? So
Yeah.
there's
If you have a
great,
piece of paper and a crayon, you can love someone that way. And
absolutely.
yeah, I was thinking when you said that, one of my favorite verses that kind of is about like, if I've been helped, then I want to help someone else. And it's
Yes.
second Corinthians
Yes.
1. And I
Yeah.
think it's 3 and 4. And it says, yep, it
Yeah.
says, the same comfort that God has given us, then we can comfort another, which is the very, very rough paraphrase of that verse, which I love. And when you get it, it really shows. When you've been there yourself, then you can share with someone else. And that's not the only way, but it is really a meaningful way to love someone when you've been there yourself. They resonate with it. They know you're genuine. They know you understand where they're coming from.
Absolutely. But you will also encounter people maybe that are walking through something that we have no idea what to say it, how to help. And I'm sure you've been on this side as well, but I have as well. But I've also said things or maybe done things that weren't super helpful. So just maybe just a couple of things that just in your book are don't do that, like, or don't,
Yes.
you
Well,
know.
one that's sort of not as obvious is that when we say to someone, "Let me know what I can do," or
Mm,
what do you let me know if you need help," or anything like that, where we're saying "let me know" with any phrase after it, um, is basically not helpful because you've put all of the burden on the person who is already struggling and in need to let you know what they can do. So what I like to tell people, and always trying to shift it to the positive. So I only put one chapter in the book about the don't do's, but I put every other chapter in a positive way of something you could do. And so we can make a specific offer. And that basically means, like, I'm going to Target today, and I have my husband's home with my babies, so I don't take them out or whatever in the COVID world right now, coronavirus. People are limited in how much they want to go out and be in stores, or depending, they could be pregnant, they could be at risk with asthma or elderly. So offering something that you already are doing, but making that specific offer. So Target, grocery store, any of that kind of stuff, practical, tangible ways to help. And that's like inside COVID and outside of COVID, to think about being specific instead of saying the generic, "let me know what I can do." And then there's some others that I think of right off the top of my head, which have to usually do with our words. And sometimes there's truth, but the truth isn't helpful to the person in that moment. So we could say, "We're so glad that they're in heaven," if someone we know has passed away. And yes, we are glad that they could, that they're in heaven, whatever that phrase that you might use. They're in a better place, or "so
mm,
glad this," or any kind of platitude or positive silver lining that we are trying to put on their situation is often not helpful, because it kind of negates the pain that they're going through in that moment. And so really what we want to do is honor the pain, the
mm,
and that's uncomfortable for some. And I would say that any of us can get through it. We just have to be brave, and it really just means saying something like, "I'm with you. I know this is hard, and I can't imagine. And I just want you to know that I'm standing with you in this pain and sorrow." Um,
mm,
Giving people permission to grieve. Like, it's okay to be sad. I can understand. Instead of trying to spin it so that we feel like we have something to say, or that we're spinning it for them. Now, if they put their own silver lining on it, then yes, embrace the silver lining. If they say, "I'm just so glad my mom's not suffering anymore. I'm just elated about that." Then wow, yes, that is such a great thing. So really you want to follow their cue in that, but you don't ever want to like make it for them. Give them their own. And people call them lots of things like Bible platitudes, or Bible bumper stickers, or that kind of stuff. And we just don't, unknowingly, we don't want to hurt someone with our words by saying something. So my expression is, just because it's true doesn't make it helpful.
mm.
So
That's
yes, they might be in a better place, but that's not necessarily helpful, because your friend, your loved one, wants to have them with them right now. And so they
great.
don't want to hear that, because they're sad and lonely and hurting. So those are a few don'ts.
Okay. Oh, those are super helpful. Yes, and I'm guilty of saying some of those as well, but
I
we
know. I catch myself saying, "Let me know." uh,
yes.
and then I'll,
I
like, if I can go to the store for you, like, I'll throw on like, what
yeah,
is the specific thing I can add in there at the end?
yes. Okay, well, we're gonna wrap up, but I just wanna say just one of the quotes on, your Alongside book that it really had an impact on me was, "Love is an essential ingredient And I think just as we think of what's essential and non-essential,
Oh,
right, in
yes.
the world, it just kind of went, oh yeah, love is essential to loving our neighbor, right? And that
Yes.
also reaching out to others is more than doing the right thing. It is our God-given responsibility. So I just want to thank you, Sarah, for just encouraging our audience tonight. If you're interested, Sarah has, I'm going to just show your books here, Hope in the Hard Places. This is your second one, right?
Yes.
And then this is the book we've been talking about alongside. You can pick them up locally, I know, as well. And also, if you have any comments or questions for Sarah in our Facebook chat screen, you can feel free to comment, and we will do our best to answer. So, thank you again, Sarah. Blessings to your family, your husband, and your ministry. And we're just so
Thank
grateful.
you.
That
Yes,
was
it's an honor to be on. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate it.